Stop scrolling right now. Seriously. If you have ever watched a movie as a kid, if you have ever laughed at a Christmas classic, if you think you already know everything about child stars and Hollywood success stories, this is where you pause. Because what you are about to hear is not the story you think you know. And before we go any further, do this one simple thing. Make sure you are watching until the very end. Do not skip. Do not jump ahead. This story only works if you experience it exactly the way it unfolded in real life. And when it hits hard. Also, right now, drop a comment saying, "I'm ready," so we know you're still here. That comment is your ticket into what might be one of the darkest, most shocking behind-the-scenes stories of Hollywood childhood fame ever told. Everyone remembers the smile, the jokes, the face that defined an entire era of family movies. He wasn't just famous, he was everywhere. Billboards, talk shows, magazine covers, movie posters plastered across the world. Adults loved him. Kids wanted to be him. Studios needed him. And for a moment, it felt like nothing could touch him. He was the highest-paid child actor of his time. Millions per movie. Record-breaking box offices. The kind of success most actors never reach in a lifetime, achieved before he even reached his teenage years. To the outside world, his life looked like a dream carved straight out of Hollywood fantasy. Fame, money, attention, applause. The golden child of cinema. But here's the thing Hollywood never tells you. Sometimes the brightest spotlight hides the darkest shadows. Behind the scenes, away from cameras and red carpets, something was deeply wrong. The kind of wrong that doesn't show up in interviews. The kind of wrong that gets buried under smiles, jokes, and box office numbers. And it all started long before the world crowned him a superstar. What most people never realized is that this wasn't just a story about talent. It was a story about control, about power, about a child carrying the weight of an entire family on his shoulders before he even understood what that meant. While the world saw success, what was really happening was pressure, relentless, suffocating pressure, building day after day, year after year. Imagine being a child whose entire worth is measured by performance. Not grades, not happiness, not health, just how well you deliver lines, how much money you bring in, how useful you are to the adults around you. That was the reality. And at the center of it all stood one figure who would define everything that followed. His father. To the public, he was barely visible, rarely interviewed, largely unknown. But inside the family, he was everything. The authority, the gatekeeper, the enforcer, a man with his own dreams of stardom that never came true, who suddenly found himself standing behind the most famous child in the world. And instead of protecting him, he took control. From the moment success arrived, childhood quietly disappeared. There was no normal school life, no playground afternoons, no sleepovers with friends, no sense of routine. Filming schedules replaced childhood milestones. Hotel rooms replaced bedrooms. Scripts replaced toys. And even then, there was a cruel twist. He didn't even get to read most of those scripts. He showed up, said the lines he was told to say, hit his marks, smiled for the cameras, and went home without ever truly knowing what kind of movie he had just made. And home didn't mean comfort. While millions flowed in, while studios celebrated him as a phenomenon, his personal life grew smaller and smaller. No personal space, no privacy, no sense of ownership over his own body or time. Even basic things most kids take for granted were stripped away. The irony was brutal. One of the richest children in the world didn't even have a bed of his own. Let that sink in. Money didn't mean safety. Fame didn't mean freedom. Success didn't mean happiness. And still, the world kept cheering. If you're still with me, this is where things start to turn. Because everything you think you know up to this point is just the surface. What comes next is the moment where silence breaks, fear peaks, and a child is forced to make a decision no child should ever have to make. Before we go on, do this. Like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Not because we want numbers, but because this story deserves to be heard in full. And trust me, the next part changes everything. Stay right here. If you're still watching, good. That means you're ready for what most people never hear. By the time the fame reached its peak, the situation behind closed doors had already crossed a line. What began as control slowly transformed into something far more disturbing. The pressure wasn't just professional anymore. It was personal, emotional, psychological, and eventually physical. The rules were absolute. Obedience wasn't expected, it was demanded. Any attempt to push back, to rest, to question what was happening was met with consequences. Not negotiation, not understanding. Consequences. The kind that teach a child one lesson above all others. Stay quiet. Imagine being locked in rooms not for safety, but for productivity. Being told that rest is weakness, that exhaustion is irrelevant, that your value comes from how much you can produce, not how you feel. And remember, this was happening to a child whose face was literally associated with joy and laughter across the entire planet. The contrast is almost impossible to grasp. On set, everyone wanted a piece of him. Interviews, photo ops, appearances. Studios fought over access. But the same people who praised his talent walked on eggshells around the man who controlled him. Crew members noticed. Casting directors noticed. Producers noticed. Something wasn't right, and they knew it. But nobody stepped in. Because in Hollywood, success often silences concern. As years passed, the weight became unbearable. The child who once performed effortlessly now felt empty, numb, disconnected. There were moments when he woke up and felt nothing at all. And that, he would later say, was the scariest part. Not pain, absence. A complete emotional shutdown. Still, he kept going. Until one night. No cameras. No audience. No script. Just a moment that would change everything. The argument escalated quickly. Voices rose. Anger took over. And then it happened. A strike. Then another. And suddenly, the illusion shattered completely. This wasn't discipline. This wasn't control. This was violence. In that moment, something inside him snapped, not in rage, but in clarity. He realized something terrifying and empowering at the same time. No one was coming to save him. So he did the only thing he could think of. He locked himself in a room. And he made a phone call that would echo through his entire life. Before we reveal what happened next, pause for a second. If you've ever wondered what really happens when child stars disappear, if you've ever questioned why some of them walk away from everything at the height of success, this is the answer. Drop a comment right now saying, "Still here," if you want the story to continue. Because the next part is the moment the world finally found out, and nothing was ever the same again. That phone call changed everything. When authorities arrived, the story could no longer be hidden. What had been whispered behind the scenes was now out in the open. Reports were filed. Statements were made. And for the first time, the most famous kid in the world wasn't playing a role. He was asking for help. The fallout was immediate and explosive. The family dynamic collapsed overnight. Relationships fractured. Trust evaporated. What followed was a brutal separation and a custody battle so bitter it played out publicly, dragging a private nightmare into headlines. The same media that once celebrated the perfect child, Star now fed on the chaos behind the image. And yet, for him, there was a strange sense of relief. For the first time, control slipped away from the person who had dominated his life. For the first time, he had a say. And with that freedom came a decision that shocked everyone. He walked away. At an age when most teenagers are dreaming about their future, he declared himself done, retired, finished. He removed the adults who had controlled his fortune and took legal control of his life. Then he vanished. No farewell tour. No final interviews. Just silence. The world didn't accept it quietly. Rumors exploded. Whispers of addiction, jail, self-destruction. Every bad outcome imaginable was attached to his name. Photos surfaced, taken out of context, used as proof that the golden child had fallen apart. But the truth was far more complex and far more painful. What he was really dealing with was trauma, depression, grief, and losses that had nothing to do with fame and everything to do with survival. For a long time, he disappeared not to escape responsibility, but to stay alive. If you think this is where the story ends, you're wrong. Because what happens next is not about downfall. It's about rebuilding. Slowly, quietly, on his own terms. Stay with me. The final part brings everything full circle. Healing didn't happen overnight. There was no dramatic comeback announcement. No flashy redemption arc. Just time, distance, and the hard work of confronting a past that most people would never survive. Little by little, he found stability. He rediscovered who he was without expectations attached. Acting became a choice again, not a requirement. And for the first time, life wasn't about performance. Then came something he never had before. Love. Not the conditional kind. Not the transactional kind. Real love. Partnership. Family. He met someone who didn't see him as a product or a paycheck, but as a person. Together, they built a life grounded in something radically different from his childhood care. Today, his focus isn't fame. It's presence. Being there. Being supportive. Saying words he rarely heard growing up. Creating a home where pride replaces fear. And here's the part that stays with you. He doesn't wish it away. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it shaped who he became. Strong. Self-aware. Still standing. If you made it this far, you're part of the story now. So here's your final call to action. Comment below with your thoughts. Do you think Hollywood has learned anything? Do you believe child stars are better protected today? And if you want more deep dives like this, make sure you're subscribed, notifications on, and share this story, because silence is how these things survive. Stay curious, stay watching, and don't forget to hype the next video by commenting Part 2 energy below.